Hi, it's Paul Anderson, and I just hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is just amazing to me. As promised, I put together a question and answer video where I'm going to answer some of the most common questions that I got. And I even have a status bar at the bottom so you can keep track of how far we've gone. And so Rose B. from Van Nuys asked these common questions. How old are you? I'm 44 years old. I just had my birthday last week. Are you married? Yes, I've been married for 21 years. My wife's name is Laura, and she's amazing. She's even helping me with the whole translating these videos into other languages. Do you have kids? Yeah, I have 2 kids. Noah is 18 years old. He's a senior at Bozeman High. And then Hannah is 15 years old, and she's a freshman. They're both going to be in an upcoming video about ferrofluids. John asked, why did you decide to do videos about science in the first place? I started doing these for my students, and so what I was doing was creating short videos at night so my students could watch them and then we could talk about it in class. And a friend of mine said, you should just post those to YouTube as well, and I did, and everything else is kind of history. Anonymous asks, how tall are you? I'm 6 feet tall, and then what is my shoe size? That's size 11, so that would be in the US. Are you currently teaching videos as well as making videos? Nurse O'Reilly from Singapore asks. Yeah, I'm teaching full-time at Bozeman High. I'm teaching 5 sections of AP Biology. And so the videos I'm making during the summer or on my own time. Jacob from Queensland, Australia asks, why do you wear glasses and not contact lenses? I tried contact lenses for a while, but I have an astigmatism, and so they were weighted, and it never really worked for me. And they were irritating, and so I went back to glasses, and so maybe I'll go back someday. From England, I got this question, what motivates you to make these videos? I would say the people who are watching it. The feedback you get from people is addicting. It's great. It allows you to get better as a teacher, but it also motivates you to add more videos to help more people. It's a real positive feedback loop. Alana B. from Florida asked, what was your favorite course when you were in high school? I love science. I've always loved mathematics and science. Actually, in high school, I would have to say that I had a psychology class, and I really loved the teacher. And I also had a creative writing class, and the teacher was wonderful. Miss Hanula was great. And so it really comes down to, for me, a lot of, if I had good teachers that were interested in how I was doing as a student, I enjoyed those classes. When I went on to university, then I started to focus more on science. Nikhil from Georgia asked, what do you like to do with your spare time? I love to do things with my family. We live in Montana, which is just beautiful. I love to ski. And so in the winter, we're usually cross-country skiing up in the mountains. In the summer, just this morning, we went for a hike up in the mountains. So I like to do things with my family up in the woods of Montana, in the mountains of Montana. But I also love the internet, and I love to make videos, obviously, and play around with technology. Next, anonymous teacher says, why do you give it all away? And I think what they were talking about is, why do you put all those videos out there? I think in education, what you find is there's a lot of stuff out there that people make you pay to watch. And so you can make a lot of money in education. And I've always thought that you just almost have an obligation as a teacher to give that knowledge away. And so it's just built on itself. And I think if I would have made people pay for everything, I wouldn't have been as successful as I have been. I think it's a great kind of experiment in that. From California, I got this question, what college did you attend and what degree do you hold? I went to Montana State University, which is right here in Bozeman. I started in pre-med, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do, but finally I decided on education. And so I have a biology undergrad degree. I then went back and got a broadfield science certification so I can teach. And then finally I got a master's degree in science education. I concentrated mostly in physics and biology. Anonymous asks, what is your favorite part of teaching? I think it would be that my day changes day to day. Every day is going to be a little bit different, and it's based on the students that I have and the interactions that I have with them. And so it's different than jobs I've had in the past. When I worked at a sandwich shop, it was essentially the same every day. In teaching, you don't know what it's going to be like. Sometimes it's wonderful, sometimes it's awful, but it's always something new. Despina from Belgium says, would you quit being a teacher to become a research scientist? I tried this for a couple of summers. I worked doing some microbiology and working with some antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and it was fascinating to see how scientists actually work. But what I realized is that it wasn't that appealing to me. I like the whole education component, and I love science, but I don't think I really have what it takes to be a intense researcher. Next, MB from New Mexico says, are you interested in teaching a workshop? I do put on an in-service every spring. It's called Springtime in the Rockies here in Montana. And I'll advertise that on my website. We had a couple of teachers come from out of Montana this last year, which was fun. And I'm also taking a teacher tour to Ecuador this summer. And so you can find more information on both of those on my website if you're interested. Liz Moore from Virginia Beach says, how do you currently structure your AP biology class? The model I'm using right now is called a blended learning cycle, and there's a video, I'll put a link down below, that I'm using. And so it really is a mastery system where the students are moving independently, and I've kind of organized it around the videos, but I'm using most of my time in class to work individually with students in small groups. Next, Daniel Lamb from Vancouver says, what's your favorite scientific principle? I think, my favorite idea that anyone ever had in the sciences has to be natural selection. I can't believe it took so long for somebody like Darwin to come up with it. And I think it's really misunderstood. A lot of people don't understand how natural selection works, and so I'm always eager to explain it to them. From Indonesia, I got this question, is it more fun to teach online or in school? I don't really teach online. The videos, obviously, I'm putting out there and may be used. I don't feel like I'm a teacher online in that I think teaching implies that the students are learning. And so I would have to go with in the classroom teaching, but it's fun to get feedback from students around the world. And that probably, it's magical that I'm getting a question from Indonesia. From the UK, I got this question, what English football team do you support? That's the Broncos. I'm just joking. That's my favorite American football team. I love soccer. I especially love the World Cup. I haven't watched much English soccer. When I did, I tended to cheer for Manchester United. I hope that doesn't irritate everyone. I loved watching Spanish soccer. Spanish is probably my favorite soccer to watch right now. It's just such a beautiful game. Anyway, let me keep going. Jessa from California. How were you able to learn about so many different science domains? I started teaching by teaching all of the different domains, and so I taught in a small rural school in Montana for the first 7 years. So I taught everything from life science through chemistry and physics, and so I had to learn the material. One thing you'll probably find out if you ever do any teaching is that you don't really understand the material until you have to explain it to somebody else. And so I think by me teaching all those different disciplines, it helped at least give me confidence to pick up that information. What is your favorite element from McKinsey in Florida? It would have to be number 6. It has to be carbon. Life is made of carbon, and it's just fascinating how many things have been built out of that. Interestingly enough, right below it is another one of my favorite elements, silicon, and things that have been made from that, like computers and the internet. I sure love those. And it's interesting, the relationship between those two elements. Iman from Egypt says, what do you think of STEM education? I think it's neat that we're seeing a push towards more STEM education. I think especially the E in STEM, which stands for engineering, is important. I think we have to get our students, especially in the lower grades, doing engineering. I don't think we want to lose other disciplines. I've heard people talk about adding an A and calling it STEAM education, adding the arts to it, and I also think that's important. I think when you're going through high school, you should take the classes that are most interesting to you. And I don't think we should force people to take specific classes because we as a country need people with STEM degrees. M from Ohio says, how have you accumulated all your knowledge in science? It comes down to me learning. If I want to teach something, I'm doing some chemistry videos right now, and some of that I had to really go back over and do some research on, and that means sitting down and going through the material. You can learn anything right now. The internet is here. Information is available. You just have to be wanting to do it. And so I would say that's how I've accumulated the knowledge, just through hard work. Joshua Veluz from Philippines wants to know when my birthday is. It's September 10th. I was born in 1969, so I just had my birthday last week. Tim from Florida says, how long does it take you to make a podcast episode? The actual filming of the video, like this one, only takes the time it takes for me to film it, and the editing is really short as well. I can edit most of these in around 15 to 20 minutes. But it's the planning. What am I going to talk about? How do I want to present that to the students? That takes a long time. If I were to say, on average, it probably takes me, 2 to 4 hours, depending on what the content is, to put together a podcast of what I want to talk about. It seems like a lot, I know, but that's kind of where I think you should put your time in, is doing the research and how do you want to present that material. Woong-Sung Yu from Korea, I'm sure I butchered that name, says, what tools do you use to make your videos? I'm simply using my computer, a webcam, and then I'm designing everything in Keynote, which is like PowerPoint for the Mac, and then I am filming it in something called ScreenFlow. I've put together a video that shows how I do all of that. If you just Google educational screencast, you should be able to find it. Brady from Minnesota says, do you have any studying advice to help retain information? That's a really good question. I think the biggest thing that gets in the way of learning is your ego. We tend to think that we know more than we do. We watch a short video on the internet and we think we're an expert at it. I think if you take a sheet of paper, a white sheet of paper, and write down the information that you're trying to learn, you'll see that sometimes you have a huge amount of information in your brain and sometimes it's empty. And so I really think that checking on, instead of just reading and taking notes and watching all these videos, take some time to sit down and write what you know. And then compare that to what you hope to know. And I think that's a good way to check on your learning. And then finally, Adrian says, what is your biggest achievement? I mean, I hope everybody would say my biggest achievement as an adult is, my family. Keeping together with my wife for 21 years, having these wonderful kids who I think are amazing. I think those are my biggest achievements. If it's professionally, what are my biggest achievements? I think it has to be the students that I've had in class. It's the students that I've had online. It's the students that I've taught. And they come back to you later and say, wow, you really changed my life. And I think I have. Then professionally, that would have to be the biggest achievement that I have. I've got so many other questions in this whole process of making this video. A lot of them were content. Could you make a video on this or this or this or this or that or this or this? I have hundreds of suggestions for videos that I'll make, and I'm going to try to do as many of those as I can. They're in a big list, and I'm doing them as I'm more excited about them, but I'm going to try to get to everything. And so, again, thanks for your support. I hope this was fun. I hope you're still here, and I hope that was helpful.